what an honor to be in here, and welcome to the Philippines Studios Samsung in Norway FHS Hybrid Seminar, a collaboration between FHS Team Media in Norway and FHS Multicultural Link Program. I'm Rhea, an FHS volunteer and a member of Team Healthy and Mobility. Together with me is Celine, a fellow FHS volunteer from Team Kulturang Noy. And we are also one of the participants of FHS Multicultural Link Program. A short introduction about the Filipino Hoping Society in Norway. The Filipino Hoping Society in Norway, or FHS, is a charity organization that provides help to those in need through its various core activities. These activities vary from aiding those in crisis or disaster situations to helping immigrants and other minorities integrate better into the Norwegian society. This hybrid seminar is part of FHS Information Drive and Awareness Campaign to support and help immigrant groups in Norway to gather the information they need to navigate life in Norway. In today's FHS and Live Hybrid Seminar, we are ending September with the topic Crisis Centers in Norway. This is an important topic for those who are in a relationship, who are married, with or without kids, and especially to those who are newcomers to Norway.
Thank you for the introduction, Rhea. By the way, I'm Celine. I'm from Kulturang Noy and also one of the participants in FHS Multicultural Link Program. But before we begin, we at the Philippines Heritage Samsung in Norway, or FHS, are here to guide, help, and hold your hand to the best of our capabilities to provide information that may help you to integrate into the Norwegian society.
Additionally, it is important to note that FHS is an independent NGO that helps with information drives that may benefit the migrant groups in Norway. We are not in any way affiliated with local government agencies, and our presentations are based on our research from reliable sources made available by the local authorities. And we cannot help any individual cases, and we ourselves have no expertise beyond the information shared. But today, we are privileged to be joined by our resource speaker, who is an expert with the topic. Having said that, shall we move on to our topic for today?
Thank you for that, partner, and welcome to all our viewers out there. To make this DigiSeminar interactive, please write down all your comments and questions in the comment section as well. We would like to open this DigiSeminar with our topic, Crisis Centers for Victims of Domestic Violence, or reviews.
Our topic for today is especially important for those experiencing domestic abuse and unsure of where to go or seek help in Norway. It's crucial for them to find a safe shelter and be in a secure environment. This can happen to anyone, not just women, but men too. Facts about crisis shelters in Norway: every year, there is over 40,000 people contacting the country's crisis centers.
So, in my opinion, this is very crucial to know for everyone who is married, in a relationship, or has kids, and very relevant to our topic for today. But I think we need an expert in order for us to fully understand this right in accordance with Norway approach.
Yes, indeed. In order for us to understand more deeply about our topic for today, we would like to welcome our guest, who is the tag leader of Romerike Crisis Center here in Norway. Let's all welcome Celia Bold Lewis.
Thank you very much, Selena and Rhea. I'm very happy to be here and to share some information about the crisis centers or shelters in Norway and explain a bit about how, if there are Filipinos in Norway who are in a situation where they experience domestic violence or think they may be experiencing domestic violence, how they can get help and who they can contact. So how do I see the presentation? I uploaded it earlier, sorry. There, perfect. So I come from Romerike Domestic Violence Shelter. We're one of many domestic violence shelters all over Norway. In this presentation, I'm going to talk through how the domestic violence shelters in Norway work, what domestic violence is. I'll talk a bit about our center specifically, and I'm going to talk about the diversity of different types of victim survivors that we are in contact with. And finally, I'll talk through some various other help services that might also be relevant if you experience domestic violence, exploitation, or sexual abuse. And if there's any questions along the way, please do ask them in the chat.
Yeah, Varshigo Celia, the floor is yours now, and we're very happy to hear from you.
So, the domestic violence shelters in Norway, they were created by women in the 1970s to offer a place of immediate safety for women who experienced partner violence. So you had, in fact, centers like this appearing all over the Nordic countries, all over Europe, and sort of founded within the feminist movement and based on this idea of solidarity, that women help women. They were often in sort of informal places, secret locations, small flats, and were spread sort of word by mouth. Now, as time grew and there more attention in the Norwegian society on partner violence, whereas before this was something private that happened behind closed doors that you were not supposed to talk about, but then it got more and more information in the public. It became something politicians started to care about. And then slowly these informal shelters gained more funding. They started working with municipalities. They also got some state funding and became more sort of established institutions within Norwegian society. And then in 2010, there was a new law that was made specifically for the domestic violence shelters. Called the Domestic Violence Shelter Act. Now, when I say shelter, I mean the same as crisis center. I'll talk a bit more about the difference later. It's just when we say crisis in English, it can mean lots of different crises. Like it can be, I don't know, a flood in your bathroom or something. But the shelters are specifically for crisis related to domestic violence. So this act states that everyone in Norway has an equal right to protection and to access services if they experience domestic violence. So this is stated in law, and all municipalities must have some sort of shelter service. That doesn't mean that there will be one shelter in each of the municipalities in Norway. Sometimes municipalities work together, sometimes they buy services from a different municipality, but every municipality is obliged to have some sort of help service that they can refer their inhabitants to. The law also says that it is for both men and women, but they must be physically separated within the shelter. So most shelters in Norway, men and women are physically separated. We are actually an exception because we have this trial project. I'll talk a bit about that afterwards. But the shelters are also obliged to give help according to each person's individual needs. That can be quite different from person to person, and I'll talk a bit more about that afterwards. And as I said, the municipality is responsible for ensuring that this service is in place. And the act, this Domestic Violence Shelter Act, is actually currently under review, so there may be some changes to it. We're very excited about that process. But it will not change anything in terms of, like, everyone will still have the same right to access. It's more a matter of exactly how it's set up. So what does a domestic violence shelter offer? We are a low threshold free service for domestic violence victim survivors and victim survivors of human trafficking. So what do I mean by that? Low threshold means anyone can contact us. They don't need to go through like an agency or their doctor or some government office or municipal office. They can contact the shelter directly. And all shelters are supposed to be available on the phone 24/7. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything to contact us. When I say it's for domestic violence victim survivors, it means someone who has experienced any form of domestic violence, and that can be from a partner, it can be from another family member or someone else that you have a close relationship to or is somehow dependent on economically or for help. And it is often partner violence, but it doesn't have to be partner violence. We also have some young adults who contact us where actually their parents are the ones who are doing the violence against them, but they're over 18, but they're still experiencing violence from their parents. And we also actually have adults and elderly people where their adult children are the ones who are violent towards them. Wow. Yeah. So it can be quite a lot of different types of people who contact us, but the largest group is those who are experiencing partner violence. And also when I say violence, a lot of people think about physical violence, that it has to be very dangerous and maybe cause a lot of physical damage. We see that in some cases, of course, but we also have a lot of cases where there may be economic violence. So they're not in control of their own money at all. It can be psychological violence, where they're constantly being harassed, told they're worthless, and not able to make decisions for themselves. It can be sexual violence, being forced to have sex without wanting to, which in Norway is illegal, even if it's your husband. And that's really important to know. And most cases, there is a mixture of these different types of violence. But we have some cases where there is no physical violence, but a lot of control. And we also help in those cases. But they may have slightly different needs. Like we offer this safe temporary accommodation in our premises. All the shelters provide a safe place to stay where there's supposed to be security, staff, someone who makes sure that nobody can come in and harm you. But a lot of people who contact us, they don't necessarily need this accommodation, but they need counseling, guidance, advice. Maybe they have some relatives or friends they can stay with, which is safe, but they can still come to the shelter to learn about their rights, to be referred to other services, and to talk about their experience and what they have gone through. We find often, especially a lot of people who are new in Norway or who have been in Norway for a while, but maybe been living under strict control, they don't necessarily know how the system works. And they need some guidance and being explained, what their rights are, what the different agencies are, and how they can work with the different agencies to get the help that they need. So that's actually a big part of what we do, is this assistance and guidance to victim survivors of domestic abuse, of how they can rebuild their life, what different services that they can contact and get help from. And we can also do follow-up after someone has left the shelter if they need to come back in for counseling and advice. Is there any questions so far, or shall I just move on?
None so far with the participants or their viewers. So just keep on.
Yeah. So a bit more about what happens at a domestic violence shelter. This is if someone actually needs to come and stay at the shelter. If possible, it's good to do some preparations before arrival. For example, if we have some conversations on the phone, plan what to bring. So you have necessities, passport, bank ID, if you have that, can be very important. If the abuser is very violent or threatening, it can be good to make a plan. And you can do that with the shelter, like what's a good time to get away, for example. And in some cases, it's not possible to do these preparations. Sometimes people come referred directly from the police directly from the hospital, directly from the Child Protection Services. But then when they come, we first do like an initial mapping, a conversation, figuring out what is your situation, what help do you need, and is this the right place for you? And if we then find out that, yes, you're a victim of domestic violence and you need this safe and sheltered temporary place to stay, then you are assigned 1 or 2 caseworkers at the shelter. It can be more if you also have children. And we start by looking at sort of your practical needs and emotional support. Like, do you have money? Have you eaten? If you need some toiletries, like the ones that you gifted us, we have some storage that we have been gifted that we can make sure that, you know, they have their basic needs met. We can stabilize. And then after, maybe they need to just sleep for a night, and then we start working on their case, doing a thorough mapping, like a conversation with them, with an interpreter if needed, going through the violence that they have experienced, doing a risk assessment, seeing, okay, is it safe for you to go outside to the shop, for example? Do we need to contact police? Maybe you need like this alarm you can get from the police where you can contact the police directly, Volds alarm it's called. We see sort of what sort of safety measures is needed and what sort of help do you need. And then we, throughout the stay, we provide some counseling, guidance and support, information about rights and responsibilities. We call it system literacy. You know how I said some people aren't familiar with how the system works. So we often need to explain, you know, what is barnevernet, what is the police, what can a lawyer help you with, what qualifies you as the right to a free lawyer, for example, what do you need to pay for? Those sort of things are really important to know so that you know how you can navigate in the system. And we cooperate a lot with other agencies. Of course, that's up to the person. If they give us permission to share some information with NAV, with Child Protection Services, we can do that. We can set up joint meetings. And then hopefully we can support them in sort of rebuilding their life safely, often in a new place, or maybe they go back to their place they stayed, but the abuser can move out, or find some solutions that make sure that they are safe. And this is how all shelters are supposed to work, not just us. This is sort of the overall process.
But Sylvia, I have a question.
Yes.
What if the victim doesn't want to get some help from the crisis center, and are you going to interfere with their decision, or you're just gonna assign them to the police or to the other organization just to get some help?
You mean if they don't want help from the shelter?
Yeah.
Well, we can't. It's completely voluntary to contact us, so we can't like physically stop someone from leaving or hold them back. In some cases, we see that they choose to go back to the abuser. Maybe he promises or she promises that it's going to stop, it's going to get better, and then we can't stop anyone. We can give advice and guidance, but we're also obliged under the Norwegian law that if we believe that someone is in danger, we have to report to the police. Like we have to call the police and say, this person just went back. We are concerned that she will experience abuse.
Okay.
But then it has to be quite serious. And then the police can go to the place and do a welfare check. And other times there's not much the police can do either. If someone doesn't want to talk to the police, if someone wants to stay with their abuser, then the police can't really do that much. But we find that often it's preventative that the police can do this welfare check. And sometimes as well, if someone comes with children and goes back with children to a setting that we have a reason to believe is violent, we also are obliged to report to the Child Protection Services, even if the person doesn't want to. But usually we cooperate about this. I mean, we don't do it in secret. We say it openly, and we also read through the report with them before we send them to the Child Protection Services.
There's one more question from our audience. How can people support their local crisis centers?
That's a very good question. I'm happy you asked that. It's probably different what the different shelters need. So I'd recommend you just maybe get in touch and ask. Like our shelter, we have like a gift account. So people can donate money, and then we have a separate fund, and we use that fund for activities and donations to the residents. So, for example, they can get a gift card at Kiwi if they don't have money for food, and we use it to buy like toiletries, basic clothing if they come, with nothing. So I guess a lot of shelters have this sort of gift account where you can donate money or have a fundraiser. Sometimes there is fundraising for specific things like toys for the children or something for the playground. So it will differ what they need, but I'd recommend you contact your local crisis center and ask. We're very reliant on gifts like that. We appreciate it a lot. We also have some food donation groups who come regularly and give some food donations to some of our residents who are in need. But that said, we also, in Norway, most people have rights also from the social security system. So we work with making sure that they also get they get money for their basic needs from the municipality, because this is a right, and it shouldn't be reliant only on charity. But we also have some people who may not, as they wait to get these applications processed, or who for different reasons are in a situation where they also need some of these donations. And then it's extremely helpful.
Yeah, that was really nice to know all these things.
Shall I move on, or are there more questions? Yeah. So I want to talk specifically about the Romerike shelter. We are owned by 12 municipalities. You can see a little map here. We're sort of on the right side of Oslo, on the east side of Oslo. 12 municipalities, quite a big area, covering about 370,000 people. So we're not covering Oslo. Oslo has a separate domestic violence shelter in Oslo, but we cover Lillestrøm, Lørenskog, Ullensaker, all these municipalities just outside of Oslo. We're one of the largest domestic violence shelters in Norway. 16 family rooms with a bathroom. We are, at least for now, we're pretty much always full. We have a lot of people contacting us. It can be one person living in a room, or it can be whole families with several children, and they share a kitchen and communal areas. And they sort of cook their own food, are responsible for their own day-to-day activities. They have a shared kitchen, shared living rooms, and then we have some communal meals, like on the weekends or for holidays, often also with support and donations. We have a very nice Christmas party, for example. And we do, activities together with them, but mainly they manage themselves. And we're also conducting in our shelter specifically this pilot project where residents are not separated based on gender. So whereas in our building previously there's like one entrance for women and one entrance for men. Whereas now they go through the same entrance. They have separate rooms, but they share a kitchen. And here you see some pictures of our shelter. Here you can see there's like a hobby room. We have an exercise room, playroom for the children, and we also have a nice playground. So we try and, staying at the shelter, it's of course exceptional circumstances. It can feel very safe and a good place to be, but it's also stressful because you're in crisis. Maybe you're planning to separate from your partner. Maybe you need to find a new place to live. Maybe you don't know your rights, and you're also sharing this space with lots of other people who are also in crisis. So we have there's a lot of different people at our shelter in a lot of different situations. In general, they go along very well. And then sometimes, obviously not, someone puts, I don't know, toothpicks in the dishwasher or something. And then, in general, we have very little conflict amongst residents. But if we do, it's generally about things like cleaning or noise in the hallway if you want to sleep and there are some children playing, those sort of things. Our statistics, this is just our shelter. In 2023, we had 267 residents. And of those, 116 were children, 19 women, and 132 women. And then, as I said, we also have a lot of conversations with people who don't need to stay in the shelter. We had almost 900 last year. People who did not live in the shelter, but they received guidance, counseling, support, either over the phone or by meeting up and having conversations. And it's been pretty stable for the last few years. It goes a bit up and down, but we're more or less full. And on average, people stay for about a month. But that can vary a lot. Some people only stay for a few days. Other people stay for several months because it takes a long time to, get everything in place to be able to relocate in a safe way.
Celia, we get a question from one of our audience. Echo Tuesday. How can you help someone who has only a temporary residence permit and is experiencing domestic violence from his or her partner? Do you send them to their home country, or can she or he stay in Norway? How about if there is a child involved who is a Norwegian citizen? Do you send them back to their country, or what are their options?
Well, first, there's a lot of questions here, so I'll try and answer them in turn. But very good questions and very representative of the sort of issues that people are faced with when they come to us. So firstly, anyone has the right to help, even if they don't have a valid residency in the shelter. But that doesn't mean that we can work magic with immigration system. But we cannot turn someone away if they don't have a valid permit. Even if they're here illegally, we cannot turn them away.
But do you inform the local authorities that he doesn't have?
We're not obliged to inform the local authorities, but also we cannot be a hiding place, if you know. But we will provide the best advice we can and put in touch with lawyers, put in touch with other organizations, because all these other questions here, if there's a child involved, if they're sent to the home country, that will differ from situation to situation. And it's really important to get good legal advice. And we have several lawyers that we cooperate with that can provide this type of legal advice. There is, according to the Norwegian law, even if you have come here on what's it called, like family reunification, if you have not stayed for the full 5 years, but experienced violence, there's like a separate clause in the law. You can apply for residency or apply for being allowed to stay because you have experienced domestic violence. But the threshold is quite high, so it's good to get legalized, but there is an option there to protect women who come here. And we do not send anyone to their home country, but we have to, give them the best advice we can according to what the law is and how the system is. And we wouldn't advise someone to stay in Norway illegally because that puts them in a very, very difficult situation further down the line. But we do the best we can in terms of providing legal advice, set in touch with other agencies, and so on. And if there is a child involved who is a Norwegian citizen, it can be, again, there are some other options where you can apply for family reunification with your child.
Under your child.
Yeah, as opposed to your husband. But again, that depends how old the child is, how long the child has been in Norway. I mean, you can always apply, but
it depends on the situation as well.
Yes, it will also depend. So again, legal advice for each specific case is really important. So we don't turn anyone away, but we can't work magic. But we try the best we can to inform about the rights and the opportunities that are there in the system. But we know that people who come here on family reunification, people who come with a temporary residence permit are extremely vulnerable to violence, and that often this can be a big part of the violence. They are experiencing that their partner or whoever it is threatening with taking away their residency, and we've also had cases where they haven't known how the system works, so they've ended up staying in Norway illegally because their partner, because the partner didn't sort of register things correctly. But then it's your individual responsibility to be here legally. So even if someone else sort of does it on your behalf, you will get in trouble. So it's really important to get good legal advice and to sort of find out best what your rights are that way. But it's definitely a group who can find it challenging. But we obviously cannot turn anyone away.
That's really a good answer with regards to the situation of all some of the immigrants here in Norway. And aside from that, we also have another question from Miss Rhea, none other than Miss Rhea. And she said that, are there any specific outreach programs targeting migrant communities at crisis centers in Norway?
There may well be. Our outreach programs are sort of this. So we are often invited to do speeches, and we sort of try and put up we have posters and material in many different languages, and we try and work with different groups who have outreach in different communities. We were just also at this, it's called Flerkulturelt råd. It's like this municipality advice council for people of different cultures. A lot of municipalities have these councils where you can also use that to reach out information. So there may well be specific outreach programs, also maybe in cooperation with other organizations, but we don't have any specific ones beyond generally inviting ourselves or being invited to hold these kind of information sessions. But that's actually a good, very good project idea. So maybe we should plan something.
There's one more question from the audience. Renz, what are the common reasons people do not go to crisis centers, and how do we help remove the stigma around it? For many are scared to go because you're gonna be labeled as abused or something. Many don't like to be called like that, especially for us immigrants. They coming here and don't know the society yet, or scared to be involved in this polity or legalization something.
I think there are many different reasons why people don't go to crisis centers, and I think one reason is simply that they don't know about it, or they don't know where it is, how to get there. So I think that's maybe one of the big jobs that we can cooperate on to inform people about how to get help and what rights you have. I think a lot of people are afraid as well. Maybe they're afraid of the child protection services. If they have children, they are afraid. Maybe they've been told stories about what's going to happen. Maybe they've been told that, you'll lose your residency, or you'll lose your children, or the government will take your children. So I think that can be a big part of it. And then providing information, I think, really is the way to go. And I think also there is a lot of stigma. And I think that's in any culture, and so across the board of the different people we have coming to us, there is, so identifying as a victim of violence can feel extremely shameful. And I think, again, talking openly about it and showing that violence happens in all families. That's also why I use victim survivors as opposed to just victims of violence, because I think the victim survivors we meet are some of the strongest people I've ever met, and to really emphasize, the strength and the capabilities of the people who are experiencing domestic abuse, and showing that, it's not the end of it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your life.
Mhm.
You can move on and build a better life. I think it helps as well that there's more openness in the public.
Yeah.
I mean, even the son of the Norwegian crown princess has committed grave domestic abuse, which is of course horrible. But I think it helps maybe remove stigma as well,
Yeah.
because it shows that even these like famous influencer girls who people know from Snapchat and TikTok. And their nice makeup videos, even they have been living with domestic violence for several years and been terrified. And I think that helps, so that other people also maybe dare to open up. Or even, the Ingebrigtsen-familien, if you heard of them, those
What's it again?
Ingebrigtsen-familien,
Oh, yeah,
those
yeah.
brothers
Yeah,
who
those two
are
brothers,
such good runners, who have
their dad.
spoken out about a very abusive father and
Yeah.
how they've been terrified of him their whole life. And I think for someone who's winning gold medals, and for many people a hero, for them to talk about being vulnerable, being scared, being abused, but also how you can rebuild your life after that. I think that helps removing some of the stigma, and that's something we just need to keep talking about, I think.
Yeah.
But I think also a final reason, I think, is that often you sort of close your eyes for the red flags and you hope that it's going to get better, right?
Yeah.
So you stay in an abusive relationship and maybe you don't see it as abuse, it's just mistakes, and you hope it's going to pass. We see that we talk about this cycle of violence, where if you're in a violent relationship, it's not like there's violence all the time. It's cyclical. It can be one incidence of violence, and then it can be really nice because they feel bad. And then maybe you have a really nice time together, and then slowly it's sort of, but then you're on edge and you're walking around adjusting, trying to make sure that the violence doesn't happen again. And then you have this cycle, and that maybe there aren't that many instances of physical violence, but you still live under this threat of violence, and you adapt and change your behavior and how you live and how you are, so as not to provoke the other person. And I think that process of adjusting can happen very gradually, and it can be hard to see yourself that you are actually in an abusive relationship. And sometimes maybe something really serious has to happen for you to actually see it from outside. And I think one thing we often advise people to do as well is just to come for a conversation, because they think to come to a crisis center, it needs to be really serious, your life needs to be in danger, but you can just come and have a conversation, and we can talk through it, and you can have a look around and talk through like how your life is, how the relationship is, and maybe that will help identify if there are some things that aren't good or aren't healthy.
Yeah, it's nice to voice to someone you feel safe, to when you don't know if these are already red flags or what you need to watch out or something. It's nice that you have somebody to talk about who can identify these red flags.
Exactly. Are there any more questions, or shall I move
None
on?
for now. So,
I think I brought some quotes. Of course, these are anonymized, but as I talked about at the start, we have a lot of different people coming to the shelter, a lot of people in very different situations. And here are some quotes from some of them. These are realistic cases, although I've changed the name and the age. But for example, we had Sarah, who's 12 years old, and she was at her place with her parents because there was an older brother in the family who was extremely violent to both his parents and his siblings. And that's kind of not a very traditional case at the shelters, but still an important one where we can help. We had an elderly woman, Ruth, who's 82, living with her daughter, but her daughter was verbally abusing her and stealing her money and refused to move out of her flat. That's also domestic violence, and that's also a type of situation where we can help. We have Josephine, who's 27, where her partner is beating her up and frightening her children. More of a traditional case of partner violence. Most of our cases are like this, but we have a big diversity. We have John, who's 37. He's in a relationship with a man who is sexually violent towards him and threatens to get him kicked out of the country. We have Lucas, 32, where his wife is actually beating him, and the children are witnessing it. And I think when you talk about stigma and coming to shelters, we find that the men who experience violence from women, they are finding it extremely difficult to speak up, to access help, and they're so scared that they won't be believed. We have Amira, who's 19, who's living under a strict control regime from her father. She's not allowed to meet any friends outside school. Now, in this case, there wasn't actually much physical violence. There was a lot of control. But there were also quite a few red flags in terms of, I mean, she's 19. She should be able to make some of her own decisions. And then what happens if she tries to make some decisions outside of what the father allows, then it could be a big risk of violence. So we have Siv, 45. Her partner is not physically violent, but he's very psychologically violent, and he's constantly threatening to kill himself if she leaves him. And that's actually, I wouldn't say it's common, but it is. We see this in quite a few cases where this threat of killing yourself also is a form of violence, but it puts the person we're in contact with in a very impossible situation, because of course you don't want the person to kill themselves, but also you cannot live under this regime where you have to do as they say, otherwise they're going to kill themselves. And then we have Andrew, who's very much controlled by her husband. And we have Hassan, a young boy, a young adult male, where his family does not accept his girlfriend and they want to send him abroad to get married to someone else. So these are also very different types of cases. They're all types of cases we can have at our shelter. And actually, I'll skip this one, I think, because I'm almost out of time. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is other help services that I think can be very useful to know about in addition to the shelters. So, for example, we have VO-linjen. It means Volds- and Overgrepslinjen. It's a national helpline for victims of domestic violence abuse. It's open 24 hours, and they also have a chat, and you can chat in English, which is why I wanted to show this to you. They work closely with the domestic violence shelters as well, so they can provide a lot of the same advice as the shelters, and they can also advise you on which shelter to contact. Like if you're somewhere in Norway, you don't know where your shelter is, you can call this or chat, and they can help you navigate and tell you where to go. And then there is also on the right here something called ROSA, which is a specific helpline and competency center on human trafficking. And they also have a 24-hour helpline. Now, we work closely with ROSA as well, the shelters do. We're also, people can come to us also if they're victims of human trafficking. But the ROSA, they have more competency on it than we do. So if you know someone or in touch with someone where you're worried about their being exploited in labor, exploited sexually, exploited in crime, in a more organized way, they can be a good point of call. And then there's also some other legislation that protects you beyond just if you're a survivor of domestic violence. So they're useful to know about. You also have JURK, which is Legal Advice for Women. They're a charity. You may know about them already. You should actually invite them to do a conversation like this. I think they're excellent. They have young, newly fresh educated lawyers, but they take on pro bono cases for women on different issues. And they're very good. I mean, they're not lawyers, but they are lawyers, but they provide legal advice. You also have SAFE, which is an organization that provides help for immigrants and refugees. They know the legal. They are based in Oslo. You can contact them by phone. They are very good on sort of the legal advice for immigrants, especially in terms of residency. And they have a lot of experience in those cases, and they have staff speaking different languages. So they can provide all of these. Of course, we can also provide contact with them, but it's useful to know. And then at the bottom here, you have overgrepsmottaket. I couldn't find it in English, but at the hospital, basically, if you have experienced rape or sexual abuse, there is a 24-hour doctor's office where you can go. They are exceptional. They are so good, the people working there. They have social workers as well, and they can do like evidence. They can secure evidence. They can provide immediate medical help. They can provide like immediate psychological help. And it's if someone experiences sexual abuse or fear they may have experienced some form of sexual abuse, or their friend has, I'd really, really recommend going there because they're very good. And they can also, if shelter. And then finally, I wanted to show you dinutvei.no, which is also the next slide. This is an online resource. It's sort of an online resource that collects everything you need to know about violence and abuse in Norway. And they have these question and answer pages, and they explain sort of the Norwegian system. Many of the things I've talked about now, they explain, and they have information in English on their website. So a lot of questions, if people have questions about child welfare or legal rights or what the police can do, there are some excellent resources there as well. That was actually what I had for you. I've lost the logo here, but are there any more questions?
There's no more, but from our audience, this is wow, this is an interesting topic from Mitch Nasamal. Yeah, it's really, we are really grateful, Celia, that you sharing your knowledge with us regarding this regarding crisis centers in Norway. And just thumbs up from Zane.
Yeah.
3 thumbs up.
All right. Thank you so much, Celia, for sharing your insights on the crisis centers in Norway. It is good to gain knowledge and to understand it better. And I believe our viewers will agree with me as well.
Yeah. I think we do not have any more questions for you, Celia. Thank you so much for coming and dedicating your time today and for the exceptional presentation. Your insights and expertise made a significant impact, and we are grateful for your valuable contribution to the society. It is an honor to collaborate with you in this program, and we hope to work with you again on our future projects. So, bye for now.
And once again, thank you, Celia, for being with us today with regards to our DigiSeminar hybrid seminar. And to reiterate, we are the members of the Filipino Helping Society in Norway, and this program is part of the integration and voluntary activities of FHS.
So, do you have more to say to our guest and audience? So, I guess audience, Sylvia?
I think if I'm going to say one last thing, it's actually going back to the stigma and how people can get help to sort of, it's actually just, how do you say, I'd encourage anyone to just talk about this topic and not be afraid to ask someone, because we know a lot of people who experience violence, abuse, sexual abuse. They don't even share it with their closest friends. It takes a lot to put it into words. So to just be like curious and talk to people around you about it, and don't be afraid to ask if you think that someone may need some help, because we find often it takes a lot for people to just contact us on their own. Often it's someone else. Often it's maybe their friend who calls first and asks for advice. This and this friend I've lost touch with her. I'm worried about this and this. What can I do to help her? We have people who call me because they're worried about their colleagues. I've had sometimes managers calling in worried about someone who works at them. I've had staff at kindergartens or schools calling in asking about someone that they're concerned about. And often that's what it takes. And maybe it just takes one person, even a neighbor sometimes can be the one who can sort of just check up how you're doing and supporting you to just get that first point of contact with the help service.
But I think if you are used to those kind of violence, you are afraid to voice out. You are afraid to get some help from other organization. And it's kind of like sad to learn and to know that there's people who used to those abuse, but they are not getting help because they are afraid.
Yeah, so for everyone who experiencing, if you need somebody to talk to, with the information we have now, we are able to get help. Be brave, be courageous, and try to speak out and call for help. It may not be really going to the crisis center itself, but having someone to talk to, having someone to give you some advices is a good thing already. So start by speaking out. That's already a big step you can do for someone who's experiencing things like this.
And especially if you are living in another country, especially in Norway, like it's really hard for the immigrants to speak up. It's really hard to be literate when it comes to your rights, especially in violence. So I think it's a good idea, and it's nice to hear from Celia regarding the situations and how we communicate or contact the crisis centers in Norway.
Yeah, that's so nice to know all these things. I'm so information overload now with all these things, but it's so nice to know that we have that here, that we have the right to get help, even if you are an immigrant, or even if you, no matter if you're a man or a woman, it's not just about you can get any kind of help you want. So now we have our. I would thank you again, Celia, for having you here. It was really nice. And for more DigiSeminars,
Norg.no and watch it on our YouTube channel, The Filipino Helping Society in Norway. Visit our website as well, www.fhsnorge.org, for more updates, other information drives, and to know more about our organization.
And also, we also want to promote the FHS multicultural links, activities, and programs. And we have also physical stock cafe, which is open for everyone every Saturday from 12 to 4 p.m. at Cultivada 8 Ushlo. And we have also a stock dinner cultura once a month where we visit museum or historical sites while
on behalf of the Philippine Scale Pisampon in Norge, FHS, I would like to thank the great people who put a lot of effort in preparing for this program. The FHS Multicultural Links officers and the team NIN, participants, and my co-host Lynn. Also, I would like to thank all our viewers for watching this program and making it as productive as possible. Lastly, thank you once again to our guest, FAG leader Celia Vold Lue. Again, this is Rhea.
And this is Celine wishing you a very everyone a safe, calm, and a cozy Saturday afternoon. Tusen tak!
FHS, tulungan sa pangalawang tahanan. Wishing everyone a good afternoon.